Although the Wild West continues to hold the public imagination today, historians believe it lasted from about 1865 to 1900. That's only 35 years. The Wild West has held an allure for generations. It is a place where freedom met with humanity, and Americans shaped the United States into the country it is today. As the Americans pushed west, they encountered the Native Americans, which led to tragedy, and they took Texas and New Mexico from the Spanish. The gold rush sent hundreds of thousands of people into the West, determined to make a better life for themselves. Yet, even though all of this was important to American history, the aspect of the Wild West that is best remembered is the outlaws that roamed the country. These outlaws continue to excite our imagination in their fight with law enforcement officers, reminding us of the importance of freedom, justice, and equality for all. Their stories are fascinating. So here are 6 of the most notorious outlaws from the Wild West. Number 1. Jim Reynolds and the Reynolds Gang. Jim Reynolds is considered one of the worst outlaws of the West. He terrorized the people of Colorado from 1861 to 1864, but he started his career as a Confederate soldier. Jim and his brother John were both captured in New Mexico in 1861 by Union forces. They were taken to Denver as prisoners of war, but their jailer helped them escape because he was secretly working for the Confederates. Now free in the Wild West, they gathered over 20 men to their group and began disrupting stagecoaches and ranches as much as possible on orders from the Confederate leaders. The Reynolds Gang had begun. They caused chaos by burning ranch homes, stealing cattle, and robbing stagecoaches. People were terrified, and reports of the violence soon grew to mythical proportions. The gang seemed to be everywhere at once, and people told tales of the Reynolds brothers being rapists, murderers, and robbers only interested in gaining wealth. Indeed, the Reynolds Gang collected wealth. Many estimate they had $40,000 by the summer of 1864. As the panic grew, the people of Colorado began fighting back. The citizens joined the Union soldiers to protect their property and finally cornered the gang in Grant, Colorado on July 31, 1864. The gang was scattered, and most were captured the next day. John Reynolds and Jack Stowe were the only ones who escaped, and OWEN Singletary died in the shootout. However, when Jim Reynolds and his gang were taken to court, they didn't have their wealth with them. Instead, Jim gave some to each remaining gang member and hid the rest in South Park before they were captured. To this day, no one knows what happened to that treasure. The court found Jim Reynolds and his gang guilty of robbery, although no one could prove murder or rape, and they were given to Union soldiers to take to Fort Lyon for sentencing. Unfortunately, one of those soldiers was Abner Williamson. Williamson and Jim Reynolds had met earlier during a stagecoach robbery. Williamson was supposed to protect the coach, but the Reynolds gang quickly overpowered him, robbed the coach and the passengers, and destroyed the stagecoach. Williamson was humiliated, but now that the gang had been captured, he took revenge. He convinced his commanding officer to have the prisoners blindfolded. Then, when the commanding officer ordered the men to be executed, Williamson stepped forward and shot the prisoners one by one. They told the press the prisoners had been killed trying to escape, leading to Jim Reynolds appearing as one of the worst outlaws in the Wild West. Number 2. Robert Clay Allison. Robert Clay Allison was one of the wildest outlaws to ride over the plains, but his outlawing tendencies worked alongside his legal career. He was born in Tennessee in 1840 and served in the Confederate Army until 1862, when he was given a medical discharge due to a manic episode. A childhood head injury reportedly caused the mania, and it would lead him to commit greater violence as Allison grew older. In fact, he was so violent that even the Ku Klux Klan couldn't get along with him for long. So by 1866, Allison moved west. He found work as a cowboy and discovered that the people out west considered him less disreputable than those back east. Soon, Allison had about 300 heads of cattle and a small ranch to call his own. Most of the famous and crazy stories of Robert Clay Allison came from his time living in New Mexico as a rancher. He had a fiery temper, especially when drunk, and was known to shoot men during his rages. His body count soon stacked up. However, Allison could occasionally put his crazed passion to use for the good of others. During the Colfax County War, the people of Colfax County fought against the Santa Fe Ring for the right to keep their land. The Santa Fe Ring was a crime ring, so Allison founded the Colfax County Ring to fight back. Even his ferocity couldn't save the land. Allison was forced off his land, but he was back in New Mexico by 1883. He married and had children, which seemed to calm his murderous rages. Even though his life had been violent, he died in 1887 in a wagon accident. Robert Clay Allison became a symbol of the West and the wildness that shaped the people who lived there. Number 3. Jesse James. Jesse James had gone down in history as one of the first bank robbers in U.S. history. He was born in 1847 in Missouri and fought on the Confederate side during the Civil War. After the war was over, James couldn't adapt to the new laws of Reconstruction. He and some fellow Confederate soldiers believed the Union had to be stopped, or at least weakened. Somewhere in the planning process, their thoughts shifted from attacking the Union to robbing places. Early in 1866, Jesse James and the rest of the James Younger gang walked into the Clay County Savings Association and staged one of the first armed bank robberies in United States history. They stole $60,000 that day and started a lucrative criminal career, robbing as many as 12 banks during their time. Other outlaws began copying Jesse James. Bank robberies soon became commonplace. Their robberies weren't always bloodless, and James even shot a cashier who looked like one of his old commanding officers from the war. Of course, the James Younger gang wasn't only interested in robbing banks. Train robbing became fashionable after the Reno brothers became the first train robbers by stopping a train and stealing $13,000 worth of valuables. By 1873, Jesse James was leading train robberies too. The James Younger gang broke up in 1876 after the Younger brothers were caught in a town in Minnesota during a bank robbery. Jesse and his brother Frank escaped the law. James wasn't ready to give up his outlaw habits, but his second gang was more interested in money than loyalty. When James's bounty was set at $10,000, Bob Ford, a new gang member, shot James in 1882 at age 34. He died as he had lived, outside the law. Even though he did not live long, Jesse James made his mark on American history and showed how a little resentment and ingenuity can create chaos. Number 4. Belle Starr. Belle Starr was a legend before she died, personifying the West's romance and wildness. She was born Myra Maybelle Shirley in Missouri in 1848. She grew up in a respectable household and learned the art of being a Southern belle. However, her life was overturned in 1864 when her oldest brother died in the Civil War, and her family, as Confederates, had to leave Missouri. They moved down to Texas. Belle's first taste of lawlessness came when the James Younger gang came knocking, asking for refuge. They had fought alongside Bud Shirley, Belle's oldest brother, so the family hid them without question. Belle soon married a man named Jim Reed, who was convicted of murder in 1869 and fled with his family to California. He took up robbing and pillaging, and Belle rode alongside him. She married several times. Her husbands did not tend to live long due to their outlaw habits. Her second husband was Sam Starr, which is where Belle got her famous name. Belle was their gang leader and led many crimes, including horse and cattle theft. She was deadly and unstoppable, a source of legend, horror, and envy. Although she was unique, Belle Starr became so ingrained with the mythos of the Wild West that her long dresses, feather hats, and side saddle all seemed a natural part of the land for us today. Unfortunately, Belle's third marriage was terrible. She married Jim July, and they fought so often that when Belle was ambushed and murdered less than a year after her marriage, Jim was the prime suspect. It is not known who killed her. Belle Starr was almost 41 years old when she died, and she remains one of the West's most colorful and romantic outlaws. Number 5. Billy the Kid. Although his given name was likely Henry McCarty, and he went by the alias William H. Bonney, this outlaw is best known as Billy the Kid. Billy is one of the most famous and well-loved outlaws from the Wild West, but he also lived a rugged, unlucky life. He took to crime at a young age. He grew up in the Irish slums of New York and was orphaned early. He finally ran away from his abusive stepfather and killed his first man in Arizona, who startled him into firing his pistol after tackling Billy to the ground. Even though Billy had a streak for murder, he was generally likable even then. Billy the Kid was involved in the Lincoln County War, which is how he made an enemy out of Pat Garrett, the newly elected sheriff. The Lincoln County War centered around the murder of John Tunstall. One side was the Lincoln County Regulators, who fought against the House to avenge Tunstall's death. The House had a monopoly on cattle and dry goods, and the Regulators wanted to end that monopoly. Several people died, and Billy the Kid was a wanted man because of the people he had killed during the war working with the regulators. Garrett was determined to catch Billy, but Billy escaped from prison twice. By the summer of 1881, Pat Garrett was furiously seeking the young outlaw and found him in Fort Sumner at Pedro Maxwell's house. Maxwell was Billy's friend, but Garrett still convinced Maxwell to let him into the house that night. When Billy got up to get a snack, Garrett killed him without even giving him a chance to surrender. Billy the Kid was 21 years old when he died. Even though Billy was known for his murderous tendencies, he is still one of the best-known outlaws today. Perhaps because his life was filled with such heartache and abruptly ended just because he wanted a midnight snack. Number 6. Jack McCall. Jack McCall is most famous for killing Wild Bill Hickok without so much as a warning. He escaped the law for months, and even though he was taken back to Deadwood for trial, he was eventually released because the town did not have an official court. Jack McCall inadvertently called the authorities' attention to Deadwood and the uncontrollable lawlessness in the town. Wild Bill Hickok was not the sheriff of Deadwood. By 1876, he had not been a lawman for years. Born James Butler Hickok, he had quickly developed a talent at sharpshooting, and he served during Bleeding Kansas and the American Civil War, earning the reputation as one of the best gunslingers in the Wild West. Although Wild Bill was good at restoring order to towns overrun with lawlessness and outlaws, he also used a brutal and barbaric justice that strayed closer to the ways of the outlaws than the lawmakers. Wild Bill was not alone in using these tactics. Many sheriffs in the Wild West could be just as brutal and trigger-happy as the outlaws they were fighting. It all caught up to Wild Bill in 1871 when he accidentally killed his deputy, Mike Williams. The inquest laid out his violent past, and Wild Bill Hickok was fired, never to serve as a sheriff again. Instead, he joined Buffalo Bill's Wild West show as a marksman. He traveled to Deadwood, South Dakota, a small mining town in the Black Hills that has become legendary for its lawlessness during the Wild West. Wild Bill was hoping to gamble a little, giving a little money to a prospector down on his luck named Jack McCall. He didn't mean anything by it, but McCall took it as a great personal slight. So, the next day, when McCall walked into the saloon and saw Wild Bill, he stepped into history by shooting this famous ex-lawman in public. The hand that Wild Bill was reportedly holding when he died has become known as the dead man's hand, a pair of black aces and a pair of black eights. Jack McCall might not have intended to, but he demonstrated how outlaws can quickly get out of control, even though we enjoy romanticizing them today. How would you like to get a deeper understanding of history, impress your friends, and predict the future more accurately based on past events? If this sounds like something you might be into, then check out the brand new Captivating History Book Club by clicking the first link in the description. To learn more about the Wild West, check out our book, The Wild West, a captivating guide to the American Old West, including stories of famous outlaws and lawmen such as Billy the Kid, Pat Garrett, Wyatt Earp, Wild Bill Hickok, and more. It's available as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.